I didn't miss out by just 5 or 10,000. I missed out by somebody that went and put $80,000 more than what I was prepared to pay for it.
Yep.
And, you know, at the end of the day, the market at the moment, there's just people out there that want to secure a place and they'll just put crazy prices out there and there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah. Going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys. Welcome to The Property Pod. I'm here with this week's sponsor, Apple.
So they reached out to you.
Granny Smith reached out, and we're good.
We're good.
I've got apples for days. Shout out to our crew out there at MKH Contracting. We really enjoyed being sponsored last week, and we milked it for all it was worth.
Absolutely. And for those that aren't on camera, you know those bowl pits? It's the same in the pod room, but with apples.
There's apples all around us. Pat's like, what's with all these apples? And I just said, don't worry, baby. I got us covered.
Yeah, Granny Smith's got you covered.
No, so the funny bit was I went into District B Coffee in Moona on Saturday morning, and I'm driving along, and there's this big Dodge Ram sitting there, and it's got MKH Contracting on the side, and I'm wearing the hoodie that they'd supplied us with for talking about them on the pod.
Yeah.
And then I walk in, and Marcus, the owner of the company, who's Pat's mate, who's there with his wife Abby, he's like,
His wife Abby. Oh, did I learn something?
what?
His wife and Abby.
Oh,
You said
sorry.
his wife Abby.
Sorry, yeah.
I was like, oh.
Hey, we're taking sponsorship from all your level.
Yeah, we're at the next level, baby. It's one of those Mormon kind of big love situations.
We hang out a lot. But jeez.
You don't know what's going on. No, so I've walked in and this Marcus bloke, who the bloody hell was that wearing my hoodie? And I said, the property part, baby. We're doing it.
Well, when your hand hoodies out like candy, it is easy to forget who you've given them to.
Well, I said to Abby, I was heading to Bunnings to go and get a floor sander to sort out
so you
the
want
back
to look
of my
like a trade.
So I wanted to look like a tradie.
yeah.
I said, you got to look the part when you get in there. They might offer you a discount or make you think that you're onto something.
Just so that you know what you're talking about, so you don't look like an idiot.
Exactly that.
Well, I'm normally working on the diggers, but I've got to use a floor sander today. Got to get a bit of advice.
Yeah. You know how this works. Well, you were doing some stuff, John. You were out in the in your house demoing last week. You're in your workwear. How did it all go?
It's been fun. Been a hell of a lot of fun. And even when we the most painful part though is in the kitchen where they had was 3 layers of history. Really, you had the modern concrete waterproofing, old school waterproofing under that. Then another piece of paper. Then newspapers from 1951, of which I ended up just fortunately enough found a big fold-out page of an old real estate guide.
Yeah, did you bring it in?
We'll bring it. But one of my favourite though was, remember when we were looking at it, just said the advertising a little bit different because there was one of them just said perfect gentleman's home, which I really liked. There was another one where it said owner desperate to sell. This one is a bargain. So, hell yeah, and then it went £2,400.
Oh,
so
it was really interesting.
Expensive.
And they've got the photos on it too. Remember we were talking about once that before. But
where they sketched the...
No, these are proper photos.
Jeez.
Yeah, so this is 1951 in the, I assume it was the Mercury, I can't remember looking at the top of it, but it had, I'm sure they were the more expensive ads, but there was probably 6 or 7 that had black and white images. That looked pretty good.
What suburbs were these fancy homes in?
You had Glenorchy, Newtown, Lenna Valley. There was 40 Barossa Road, Lenna Valley, so that address doesn't exist anymore because it's been rezoned to Glenorchy. So it's kind of cool. Unbelievable too, just the chances that we could find that specifically. It was unreal with this renovation.
None of your dad's ads in there?
No.
Sorry, Chris.
I think we should superimpose it though. He looks the same all throughout history. But I ended up buying my partner a set of work boots because she's never had them before. So she was absolutely loving it. Just, I think it was like blue steel, whatever it was. And, proper some work pants and gear. So we absolutely looked the part. Neither of us know what the hell we're doing.
Well, I think that's the important part is you always got to look the part.
Exactly.
And that's what we're taking away from this Woody story.
See, I don't know whether or not that helps though. So say if I'm asking about a tool and I look like I know what I'm talking about, I might not get the same assistance because they're going to assume I know half of it already. It's like, nah, mate, start from scratch, please. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
You backfired maybe.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah,
Because
maybe
you're like,
quite-
yeah, you're fine. You're like, then you just want to say yeah because you don't know.
He's got
see
bunnies
one.
on. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's like you don't look like a fool by going in. It's like I used to work in a bar,
Yeah.
and if people would come up and ask for a certain cocktail that I didn't know what to do, I'd be like, yeah,
I got this.
I just got to go out the back and grab the important ingredient for that one, and then if you get your phone out and look at what is in
What
an
the hell?
old fashioned. Okay, you've got you. And then you come out and you do your Tom Cruise, and you got this all sorted, and it's like, geez, he's good at that.
Well, I have it too when we're, a person references the fact that they used to be a salesperson in real estate, etc. And then I don't know how, what they want me, which direction to take. Like, do we go old information? Do I ask about the contract? Sometimes they'll be happy just to, listen as you would as a regular customer. Others will just sit there and unload all the information about the experiences they had as a better salesperson back in the days. Like, that's fine. So it's just that balance of, well, what kind of service level do you want at this point?
That's actually a really good point to flip today, because you've been trying to buy in the current market, Pat. So you're a salesperson dealing with agents who aren't yourself.
Yeah, I'll put it out there. For 4 days I've been trying to buy. I've only just started, but I've already experienced what everyone's talking about in the marketplace.
Yeah, so can you run us through kind of your experience in the 4-day period, which people have been having?
Well, putting it straight out there, I was unsuccessful in buying the property I went for,
Yep.
much like so many people are. It was a multiple offer situation. And I thought maybe being in the industry, I'd be able to not pull some strings, but know the right things to do to get a better chance at trying to get the property.
You'd hope your knowledge base would kind of put you in good stead to know, this is an appropriate offer to make, or this is...
So I did a couple of things. Like, everyone at the moment keeps telling us whenever we're at properties that, houses are selling for 5 to 10% more than what they're being advertised at.
Yeah.
So, I took that advice on board and thought, well, rightio, I can't start with an offer below 10% because I'm not going to be competitive.
Yeah.
So I made sure I was over that 10% threshold. I went and spoke to a couple of people. Luckily, being in the industry, you have contacts at different areas. So I rang my broker and had a chat to him and said, if I buy this property, can I afford it? And he assured me that it should be fine. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm going to go one step further, because in this marketplace, I knew it was multiple offer situation. And I was thinking, subject to sale is not going to get this done. I wanted the place, but I had a house that we live in now that we would have to sell. I knew that I wouldn't be able to sell the place while waiting, like as part of the contract. So I forgot about that. Then I started thinking about the finance aspect of it, and I was like, oh, well, finance is pretty easy. The bank's told me I'm pre-approved, but everyone's telling agents that they're pre-approved on finance.
Yeah.
And it's still taking 21 days. And I was like, stuff it. I'm just going to go cash even though I'm not. And I'm putting it straight out there, everyone. You should never do that.
Yeah.
But I did.
So just for the people out there like me that don't really exactly know that, like, if, say you got it and you didn't sell your house, which is what you would need to have
you're
the
in
cash.
big trouble, because you've got to settle within the time frame. So basically a cash offer is what we call an unconditional offer. It doesn't mean that you technically have, $1 million sitting in the bank that you're going to use to buy this property.
Yep.
What it means is that you're committing to the vendor that you're 100% moving forward with this property.
Yep.
And legally you cannot back out of buying the property.
So no matter what, on the day of settlement,
you've got to have
the money.
Yep.
Or you can lose your deposit.
You can lose your deposit. You can be sued to complete. There's a heap of legal things that can go wrong if you don't settle. So I was like, well, my broker said I'm pretty good. I'll roll the dice and I'll go cash.
Run the gauntlet.
I was like,
gladiator.
The classic Patrick Berry. She'll be right.
She'll be right.
I was like, so I did that. I made it a 45-day settlement instead of a 30-day settlement. So most people would have 30-day settlements, but I was like, well, I'll need 14 days to get my finance sorted. So I'll give myself a little bit extra.
So you put
time.
a little buffer in place.
Just to make sure that I could try and get this finance deal together. And so I did all of that, and I still missed out on the property. And look, it happens. But I didn't miss out by just 5 or 10,000. I missed out by somebody that went and put $80,000 more than what I was prepared to pay for it. And at the end of the day, the market at the moment, there's just people out there that want to secure a place, and they'll just put crazy prices out there, and there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
Apart from, move on to the next one and try again.
Yeah, which has got to be so disheartening, because you kind of, you start investing emotionally in like, oh, this could be my future home. I'm going to put in, and I'm going to stretch my well, actually, yours is a perfect example. You've kind of gone beyond your means to be like, this is
Gone
against.
beyond your means, ran the gauntlet.
Yeah. And
It was
I know.
almost like a sigh of relief when she said it.
So
Don't distress tonight.
so the real estate professional does everything you're not supposed to do
Yeah.
and still didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think
Yeah.
it's a good example of like you can go well above, and still there's someone out there that may just blow you out of the water.
Yeah.
and you can't control that because with
That's
multiple
the
offer situations, like you're given an opportunity to make that offer, they come back to you and ask, do you want to improve it? Which if you can, you can. But sometimes you still can't get to where it needs to be, and you've got no. During this process, you've got no knowledge of where that endpoint is.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you described kind of what price it kind of was beyond your price,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, you're in the industry, you should know the prices. And then it got me thinking, like a few times I've been looking at a few posts that agents have been putting out there and saying like sold for 80,000 over asking price, sold for 150,000. I was like, doesn't that make them seem dumb? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't it make the agent look silly that they're kind of, I appraised it at this price and like it's
was that
actually
far wrong?
achieving this. I was this far off, and I was like, they're using it as a badge of honor, but really, you can't control these things in the current
No,
market. So it's
you
not.
can't.
It's not a silly thing to say. Oh, I was wrong by $100,000. It's just like, oh, this is what the market was saying it should be. However,
I find those posts, a little bit daunting as well. Does that then for the purchaser look at that post and say, shit, I paid $100,000
overpaid?
too much for it?
Yeah, I don't like them at all.
Yeah, so I'm a bit torn on those type of posts as well. But a lot of agents do them to brag about how successful they were in their marketing campaign. And sure, the vendor's happy, and I guess that's who we work for. But
yeah, no, it's just one of those funny ones where I've been sitting, looking at them, reading them. It's like, oh, I don't know how I feel about doing these kind of posts. Like, I know there's kind of the big it's like that Lords of Property Instagram. If anybody out there that does listen to the Property Pod and enjoys a little bit of property related memes or humor or just anything, check out Lords of Property on Instagram.
I don't know if you should even put that in there because they may have filters set up and they'll find us.
I hope they find us, and I hope they troll through it and they come up and just be like, oh, well, actually, no. It doesn't matter for me because I'm not an agent. But you guys might be the new Fraser or whoever that kid.
You watch what they do and you cringe like any industry that's sort of taking the mickey out of you because there's always so much truth in those exaggerations of the jokes. Or someone who's like, I know a bloke or a gal who's exactly like that and said that exact thing, It's unreal.
Well, again, it's one of those things where if we're talking about it, they're doing the right thing. So I know who this Fraser guy is now, so he seems like a real tool on he seems like the hammer, like that thing we were watching on John Oliver. So you have outlandish ads, you'll
get noticed.
Yeah,
Well,
so
this is an interesting one where probably our Tasmanian clients might not be so familiar with it. In the auction environment, to buy a house is unconditional is what you do. So what's happening with an auction contract and why it's so appealing is that it's purchased with no conditions. So you have to do all your building inspections prior to, have everything sorted out because on the day it becomes an unconditional contract.
Yeah, so it's almost like what I did,
That's
I guess,
right.
because they're going to their broker and their broker's saying, rightio, at the auction on Saturday, you can spend up to X amount of dollars.
Yes.
Don't go above that bid because I can't give you the money for that. So it's pretty much exactly what Abby and I did. We just weren't pre-approved. We just had a 10-minute conversation with our broker and thought, let's roll the dice.
she should have asked her other husband. He might have been able to help out.
Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. But I think
His nickname is Money King if you're talking to him next time.
Oh, I remember that.
MKH, Money King Headlam. It's really Marcus and Kirsten Headlam, but we call him Money King.
Yeah, that's way better.
The Money King himself. Shout out to the Money King who went and purchased a keg for all his employees over the weekend that was 41 litres bigger than his system could handle.
See?
Actually,
That's only something a Money King would do.
Very true.
Well, there is one part that I'm really excited about in our business now where we're offering another level of service for, when it comes to making decisions in these markets, both for sale, buying and selling, is the next, who can you focus on to help you, nail down your investment advice.
So this is part of John's circle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He hasn't talked about
in his
circle.
corner.
Yeah, he hasn't had his corner out for a while now.
Yeah, because it's great. Well, I'm really
I
excited.
reckon it got too full. Too many people in
Too
there.
many people in the team.
Well, they'd have to socially distance as well in this corner, and it's so tricky in this modern environment to
so
work out how close am I allowed to stand to you.
So we've got one more person at this point. That's why we're going to have to go upstairs in this office. Just too many people with my team. But with Joanne on board.
Yeah, so we've got our new employee, Joanne Strange, that started this week.
Yeah.
Really excited to have her on board. Tried to get her in today, but she wasn't too keen to be on the camera. But hey, we might
tried.
get her in the near future.
Yeah.
But Joanne's come on board as a business development manager, which is really exciting.
So this is something I'd never heard of until she was coming on board, and
Yep.
I'm really intrigued by the idea. I think it's really cool, and she seems really, really passionate about what she does.
Yeah, so for anyone that's wondering what a business development manager is, it's pretty simple. They are the rental version of a sales consultant.
Yeah.
So where John and I
Exactly.
will go out and appraise a property for sale, they go out and appraise a property for rent.
Yep.
And their job is to convince the owner to give our company the property to rent over one of our competitors.
Which makes so much sense. Like, I'm like, how is this? Well, I'm sure it has been a thing. It's just a thing I wasn't aware of. But it makes so much sense to be like, oh, well, we can tell you what it's worth to sell, but of course we can tell you what it's worth to have as investment.
Yeah.
So it's very different because like a business development manager would normally have more traits like a sales consultant. They would sort of follow the sort of same characteristics that John and I would have.
Yep.
Where a property manager is more system based and more like problem solving, and you'd find that a property manager not necessarily is always good at appraising properties and like convincing people that we're the right choice for them.
Yep.
So it's really exciting to have someone that's got a bit of a sales background and a BDM background coming on board. And Joe's one of the best in the state, so we're super excited that she's chosen to move her career to our agency.
Well, she's been nominated for BDM awards internationally twice.
Yeah.
I think she's been nominated to that. She's kind of won awards across
Australia.
So she's an absolute superstar and a massive
so-
asset to the team.
Yeah, so and like her level of service is amazing. Like to give you an example, I had an investor that reached out about one of my properties in Claremont on 2 nights ago, and I responded back to him as CC'd Joe in saying, yes, we can get a rental appraisal for you. I've CC'd Joanne into this email. She'll reach out to you tomorrow morning to get you the information. Nope, she saw that email in her inbox at home on Tuesday night, jumped online, did the research, sent the letter off, and the purchaser emailed her back and CC'd me and saying, thank you, Joe, for being so efficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
They got the info they needed within a couple of hours, and they were not expecting it because I'd already pre-warned them, that, we're finished for the night. She'll be back in the office 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But no, it's that service level and that opportunity that she was driving. She was keen to get them to know who she was, which was great.
And I think the exciting thing, how I see it from the business perspective and on an additional service level, is where the property manager that is appointed to obviously look after the inspections, know the intimate details of your property, etc., and that with other clients, they're taking care of the day-to-day, management, ensure the asset is well looked after. But then you've also got a person now dedicated to helping you find, source, give advice on properties as well, and they'll work in with the property manager team. So we've got just that extra level of potential and time and expertise.
Well, it's a really
that pops
interesting
on.
role because Joe sort of sits between sales and rentals.
Yeah.
So, she'll liaise obviously very heavily with the sales team while working on bringing new time investors on board and helping them educate the understanding of what to look out for when buying their first investment property.
Indeed.
But then she also helps facilitate that through to the rental team so they know exactly what to do with the property once we get it. So
It's like when we spoke about Abby referring to the rental team as the meat in the sandwich. It's almost like the extra mayonnaise, or you could say the meat in the sandwich between
that'd work.
the whole thing. So it's a double meat, like a super whopper.
super whopper.
A whopper Angus. No, what are they called? The
Double Angus Whopper Magnum for Flurry.
That's it.
Just going to get a bit of Hungry Jack's tobacco and mix it together.
Zinger burger too.
Well, the good thing for our business now is that not only, I suppose, when you're asking us, obviously we've got some general knowledge and then highly specified knowledge in a specific thing. We're bringing in additional specialists for our clients every step of the way. And so then all of a sudden our business is able to, really give great advice across your entire life cycle of your ownership in a real estate. And just having Joanne and the team is just a really exciting offer we can do now.
Yeah, so hopefully in the near future we can convince her to come on board. But
I'm sure we can. Yeah, I'm sure we can. No, she's been a breath of fresh air in the last few days that she's been in the office, and I think it's just going to be an exciting time as we move forward with building the 414 empire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to Granny Smith Apples. Got it. Well, MKH's got so many free players. Like, we've got to get these Granny Smiths on.
You're not even eating a Granny Smith.
Where's my apple?
I went to get you guys apples this morning, but I only had 2 left, and Jack needed one. So
Oh, damn. Family first, I suppose. Huh?
there'll be people out there listening that have that ASMR thing where they like can't hear people chewing in their thing. So sorry
yeah.
about that, guys.
All right, well, we got one last thing that came across our desk this week, which I also thought was pretty interesting. And it's actually something you found, John, a company by the name of Own Home.
Oh, yeah. So this probably would have been good we brought this in after your experience, because this idea now is going back to the rent-to-buy principle. So the first way of think of a rent-to-buy situation is that you don't have a deposit. So what you're going to do is rent, you'll come to an agreed rent with an owner, and then plus an additional
Amount on top,
which starts to contribute to the deposit. And then you'll have an agreed term for, say, 2 years' worth of renting, at which time then you'll have already agreed to a purchase price, and you'll get the finance in that after those 2 years, and then secure the property.
So it's just like a retrovision kind of situation where you're already rentals.
Afterpay for houses.
Afterpay for houses, that's better. I like that. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, so look, this company's a new startup. They've just started. So really try to break it down so you understand how it works is you would apply with Own Home and make an application. And I think there's a startup fee involved in joining them.
Yep.
You then go out and you look at properties on realestate.com, any property that you like the look of. Like, it can be anywhere. Like it doesn't have to be for sale with Own Home. It can be with us or LJ or PRD or whoever it may be.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that you say to Own Home, this is the house of my dreams. And then they go buy it on your behalf. So it's currently, say, owned by John McGregor. Own Home goes and buys it off John McGregor, and they become the landlord.
Yeah.
And then you rent it from Own Home with what John's described by paying a little bit extra. And then that builds up credit. And you've got between, I think it said 3 to 7 years at a pre-arranged price to buy it off them.
That's so
you
interesting,
can
isn't
rent it up to 7 years before you actually have to commit to go to the bank and get the
finance.
Get the finance to purchase the property.
Because also too, it'd be interesting to note whether or not if it's an upfront agreed purchase price, and then they would probably factoring in some element of inflation over the rent as well. So, because
having a look here where I'm reading it, it says once you've got the rate doesn't change regardless of what happens to the prices in the property market. So
Double-edged sword. So if the market crashes, you're still committed to pay the higher price, but if it goes up, you still win.
Yeah, well, and I guess let's just, I suppose, play it out in us three. Aaron, you're I'm the buyer. Pat, you're the...
we're doing a role play.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't think we've ever done one of these.
And you're live role play. You're the homeowner. Now, obviously, I can't afford your house yet, but this company can. And then Pat and I will enter this rent to buy agreement. So you'll have bought it. You'll have got your result, Aaron, that you're happy with. And then obviously we'll come into an agreement where the company would be, making profit over time, making money by renting as well as, I suppose, that agreed above interest rate, you'd say, or whatever the term they use.
Yeah, they refer to it as rent credits.
Rent credits.
So it must have, rent credit must have a value. So, and then as you accumulate rent credits. But I think what's really cool about it, especially in the market we're in now, is that, maybe a first home buyer can't buy today. But if the market, I think they're still saying that the market could go up by 6 to 12% or something in the next 12 months.
Who knows, eh?
So if you agree to buy a house today with these guys, and then in 12 months' time you've got an extra 12% equity there, all of a sudden your mortgage insurance is gone.
Yes, that's a really good point.
And then you can actually go to the bank at 80% and borrow the money to buy it because you're paying the price from 12 months ago, not current market value.
Well, it's almost like, and I'll do this really bad for any traders, but it's almost like buying an option on property where you've agreed to a price today, and then you're going to secure it at that same price, 2 to 5 years from now. So you're locking in a price today, knowing that you're not going to be paying for it for another 5 years or so.
Of course, definitely get your solicitor to look over it because we've only read their fancy website and it's a nice, pretty site. But the concept sounds interesting.
And based on what we've heard from Pat earlier today, don't take any advice from him.
Well,
and he will go to professionals and he'll still just ignore them.
I did have a laugh. I was listening to our disclaimer at the end of this podcast and basically says don't listen to a word we say.
Oh, well.
That's why we put it in.
I don't think anyone does anyway. But
I think it's an interesting experience though, isn't it? Because where even as an agent, we still struggle to buy properties in the current market, and obviously there opportunities like this is starting to pivot so that hopefully, alternative options can become available to people because in a really hot rising, when prices are going up really quickly, is that you might be saving your extra $100 a week. But the values, as we saw, was in our last episode, were going up by $200-300 a week.
It was $400
$400 a week.
So you're just following.
Sarah spent up big.
Yeah, so you're
The only episode she ever listened to.
well, it's just so you're always falling behind, which just feel devastating.
So to know, even if you're only attributing a little bit extra each week, to this rent credit component, you're still locking in the price at today's value until you can afford it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, whatever it may be. And hopefully by then the property's increased in value anyway. And so you've built up equity without actually being the owner technically of the property.
Yes, absolutely. So it'd be interesting to see how far it takes off because obviously
interesting to get the guys on the show and to find out how it bloody works.
Yeah, actually
We'll shoot out an email.
That's a good way to go about it.
Sounds good.
And then they'll listen to this and say, you guys were so wrong.
No, that's one of my favourite things. Like when Luke comes on, it's just like, boys,
well,
you bug
it's
it up
kind
so
of handy
hard.
just to try and figure it out, and then I suppose there's more incentive to come on to describe exactly what it is properly.
I'm actually a bit upset with Luke. He was on Will Anderson's Willosophy with Will Anderson recently.
Oh, yeah?
And I think property came up twice in that.
Oh, and he didn't drop us.
No mention of the pod.
He could have dropped. He said, my brother's got a really entertaining podcast. But, so, Luke, just know you're on notice.
Yeah.
It was a really good listen, though.
Actually, I'm still, we're keen to check that one out.
Yeah, no, really good listen. So shout out to anybody that's jumped from here. You can jump over to Willosophy, but you won't hear anything about the property pod from Luke.
Exactly.
As much as we'd like for him to plug us.
Please plug us.
You are on notice.
Even just a shot on your Insta story of like of your iPod with our logo on it. Anything, please.
All right, boys.
I think we better finish up.
I think we better finish up there.
Awesome.
Shout out to any
Granny
Apple lovers out there.
Granny Smith.
Granny Smiths for life.
See you guys.
See ya.
Listening to the Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken